She walked into the clinic expecting a moment of joy, to find out if she was having a boy or a girl, but what she found was a betrayal hiding just around the corner. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about silence, about a woman who chose truth over comfort. From an ultrasound room, to a quiet kitchen, to the first cry of a newborn. Harper Lane learned the hardest lesson of all. Forgiveness isn't always the goal, but honesty, that's how we begin again. This is her story, and maybe it's yours too. The ultrasound gel was cold. I flinched a little as the tech pressed the wand to my belly, offering me that soft, practiced smile. I tried to mirror it, but my lips wouldn't quite cooperate. The room smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic. I stared up at the ceiling tiles first, then at the monitor, holding my breath. 20 weeks. Today was supposed to be special. Today, I would finally find out if the baby growing inside me, the one who kicked every night around 3 a.m., was a boy or a girl. And Colton had promised he'd be here for it. He swore on our kitchen table, on the nursery walls we hadn't painted yet, on my hand when he kissed it goodbye this morning. But the chair next to the exam table was still empty. "Let's just get started," the technician said kindly. "He might still make it." I nodded, more to stop myself from tearing up than anything else. I wasn't angry, at least not yet. The grainy black and white image flickered to life on the screen. I sucked in a sharp breath as the little shape I'd only dreamed about for months appeared. Tiny arms, tiny legs, a curved spine that looked like a wave in motion. The technician moved the wand slowly. "That's the head. Spine looks perfect. And here, look at that. Baby's stretching." My throat clenched. My baby. Real. Moving. Here. I gripped the paper sheet draped over my lap and whispered, "You're doing great, baby." Then the tech paused, looked at me with that smile again. "Would you like to know the sex?" I blinked. My heart skipped. I nodded too fast. She adjusted the probe, then smiled. "Congratulations. It's a boy." Time paused. My world narrowed to one word: boy. I whispered it like a prayer, like it might break if I said it too loud. A boy. A son. Colton would be thrilled. He always talked about teaching his son to fish, to fix up an old Mustang like the one his dad used to own. We'd even picked a name. Asher. Strong. Hopeful. Whole. The tech handed me a printout of the image. I took it in trembling hands like it was made of glass and gold. Then I slid off the table, pulled my sweater back down, and stepped into the clinic hallway. The sun poured in through tall windows. I reached for my phone and called Colton. No answer. I texted, "It's a boy. Meet me in the lobby." Still nothing. Maybe he was parking. I wandered toward the elevators, glancing around, expecting to see him rushing in with that apologetic grin. But instead, I heard him. A low voice around the corner, near the vending machines. "We have to be more careful. She's getting suspicious." I froze. The photo of Asher crinkled slightly in my grip. A woman answered, familiar and sharp. "You're overthinking it, Colt. She has no idea." I took one silent step forward. The next words sliced me open. "Riley," Colton whispered. "Riley, my best friend, my maid of honor, my sister in every way but blood." "You're 4 months now. It's only a matter of time," she scoffed. "She won't figure it out. Harper trusts too easily." My knees buckled. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching my belly, shielding Asher from words that hurt worse than fists. They were talking about the baby, her baby, Colton's baby. And me? I was just a hurdle in their perfect little secret. A breath caught in my throat, but I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, I stepped around the corner with the softest smile I could muster. "Hey, babe," I said. "You're not going to believe what I just found out." Colton turned, too fast. His smile was a second too slow, and in that exact moment, something inside me began to crack. Not loudly, not completely, but enough to never forget this feeling again. Alton's smile was like a reflex, polished, charming, a little too bright. He stepped toward me like nothing had just cracked the air between us. "There you are," he said. "I was just looking for you." "Were you?" I almost laughed. Instead, I lifted the ultrasound photo between us. "It's a boy," I said, voice like velvet over glass. His eyes lit up. "A boy? No way!" He took the picture like it was a winning lottery ticket, clutching it to his chest. "Asher. Our Asher." He reached for me and pulled me into his arms, lifting me slightly off the ground. I hugged him back. I even let my cheek press against his shoulder. He still smelled like the cologne I bought him last Christmas, cedar and citrus. That scent used to make me feel safe. Now it made my stomach twist. "I can't believe it," he murmured into my hair. "You okay? You look a little pale." "Just tired," I whispered. It wasn't a lie. I had never felt this tired in my life. "Come on, let's get you home. We're celebrating. Pancakes or steak, your pick. You get anything you want today." I nodded, smiling like I meant it. The kind of smile that hurts your face. The kind that women wear when the world is spinning, but you're still expected to hold the room together. We drove in silence for most of the ride. He hummed to the radio, some twangy country song about love and pickup trucks. I stared out the window at the rust-colored leaves dancing across the highway. The world looked the same, but I wasn't. When we pulled into the driveway of our cozy three-bedroom home in Evergreen, it felt like arriving at someone else's house. Once I'd dreamed of that house. Now it looked like a carefully curated lie, a stage, and I was the actress still trapped in a role I hadn't auditioned for. "I'll start dinner," I offered, slipping off my shoes. "Don't be silly. Let me help." "No," I said too fast. Then softer. "I just need something to do with my hands. It calms me." He kissed my cheek and disappeared into the living room. The TV clicked on. Football. I stood in the kitchen and peeled potatoes, one by one, mechanically, like I was flipping through the pages of a life that used to belong to me. And then I started counting backward. I got pregnant in September. Riley was 4 months along, July, maybe early August. The weekend Colton said he had a client emergency in Denver, gone 2 nights. He texted me every evening like clockwork. I even teased him when he came back. "Don't fall in love with your spreadsheets." He'd laughed. I'd believed him. The knife slipped, a thin, bright cut across my finger. I stared at the drop of blood forming, red, sharp, honest. I pressed a paper towel to it, took a deep breath, and kept going. Because that's what women do. 10 minutes later, he came in, sniffing the air. "Smells amazing," he said. "You're incredible. Honestly, I don't know how I got this lucky." I turned my back to him, stirring the pan so he wouldn't see my shoulders tense. He slid his arms around my waist, pressed a kiss to the back of my neck. "I can't wait to meet our boy," he whispered. "You're going to be such a good mom." I closed my eyes, swallowed the scream that was clawing its way up my throat. That night, I lay wide awake while Colton snored beside me, his hand resting protectively over my belly like some noble guardian. I stared at the ceiling, counting the lies. One for every time he kissed me and thought of her. When morning finally came, I was already sitting in the kitchen, tea in hand, laptop open, blank document waiting. It wasn't a letter, it wasn't a plan, it was just everything I hadn't been able to say aloud. And somewhere inside me, something began to rise. Not rage, not yet, but truth. And truth was louder than any scream I could have mustered. The message came mid-morning, just after I'd finished folding a basket of baby onesies I didn't have the heart to wash again. Riley. "Hey babe, brunch at Maple and Sage today? I have news. News." Like I hadn't already heard enough of it whispered behind a vending machine. I stared at her text for a full minute. My fingers hovered over ignore, then drifted, almost involuntarily, to, "Sure, 4 p.m.? Maybe I needed to see her, to look straight into the eyes of the woman I once called my second soul, and see if she'd blink. Maple and Sage was our place. Corner booth, ivy in the windows, mismatched mugs, the kind of place that smelled like cinnamon and old secrets. I arrived 5 minutes early. She was already there. Of course she was. Riley waved with both hands like nothing in the world had changed. "Harper, you look radiant." I hugged her. Barely. She felt the same, but not. Too warm, too close, too foreign. We sat. She leaned in, eyes sparkling over her latte. "Okay, so I've been vague on purpose, but I wanted to tell you face to face. There's someone." My fingers tightened around my cup. Lemon tea. Steeped too long. Bitter. "Someone serious?" I asked, tone even. She blushed like a teenager. "More than serious. He's amazing, Harper. Kind, supportive. He says I make him feel alive again." I almost laughed. The poetry of betrayal never fails to romanticize itself. "And you're keeping it secret because," I prompted. Her smile turned sheepish. "It's complicated. He's married." I didn't flinch, didn't sip, didn't move. I just stared at her as she stirred her latte with deliberate elegance. "But it's over between them," she added quickly. "He's just staying for the baby. She's pregnant too, but he says it doesn't mean anything anymore." The air left my lungs. Colton had reduced my child, our son, to a technicality, an obligation, something to be managed while he whispered sweet futures into Riley's ear. "Have I met him?" I asked, soft as silk. She hesitated. "Maybe, but please don't ask me for details yet. It's not official." "Official." "He wants to marry me," she added, dreamy. "We're going to be a family." Asher kicked, not hard, not angry, just present. Like a reminder, "I'm here, Mom. I see it too." "And he knows about the baby?" I asked. "Of course. He's been amazing. Talks to the bump, buys prenatal gummies. You should see how protective he is when we walk near traffic." I wanted to scream, to flip the table and ask how she could talk about prenatal vitamins when the woman she betrayed was sitting right across from her. But instead I smiled. "Do you think he'll really leave her?" A flicker. Just one. A crack in her painted certainty. "He said he would. He promised. He just needs the right time." "And if he doesn't?" She looked down at her napkin, folded it, unfolded it. "He will," she whispered. We sat in silence. The babies shifted inside us like witnesses to a crime neither of them asked to be part of. Finally, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm so glad I could tell you. You're the only one I trust." That line nearly broke me. The only one she trusts. I swallowed hard and forced the warmest lie I've ever told. "Your secret's safe with me." When I got home, I went straight to the bathroom and locked the door. I didn't want Colton to see my face, not yet. Not while it was still too raw, too honest. I sat on the closed toilet lid, one hand on my belly, one clutching my stomach like I could protect Asher from everything I'd just swallowed. He kicked, twice, steady. I whispered into the silence, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was splintering. And no amount of tea or lies could keep me from the truth that was finally boiling to the surface. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay in that house another day. Not without suffocating. Not without screaming in ways no one would hear. Colton was still asleep, curled around me like we were the same couple who'd once picked nursery paint samples while sharing strawberry milkshakes. His hand rested on my belly, protective, familiar. The kind of gesture that might have meant something once. Now, it just felt scripted, like he was still playing a role in a show I no longer believed in. I slipped out of bed without waking him, padded barefoot to the kitchen, brewed tea, burned toast, didn't eat. I stood there for a long time, mug warm in my hands, staring out the window at the neighborhood coming alive. Kids on bikes, dogs tugging leashes, sprinklers painting arcs in gold morning light. I couldn't do it anymore. Not the pretending, not the rehearsed smiles, not the quiet swallowing of a betrayal too big for my throat. So I packed a bag, just the essentials, a few changes of clothes, prenatal vitamins, phone charger. Asher's first ultrasound tucked safely between the pages of a book I wasn't reading. I didn't leave a note, didn't slam the door, I just walked out. The highway stretched ahead like an unspoken promise. The leaves were turning, amber, rust, gold, fluttering down in lazy spirals. Autumn in Colorado always felt like a second chance, a softer kind of ending. I passed the lake where Colton proposed, the bookstore where Riley and I used to argue about poetry versus prose, the diner with the corner booth where we planned baby showers that would never happen, each place a bruise I drove through. When I pulled into my parents' driveway in Fort Collins, it was just after 9 a.m. The house looked exactly the same. Two-story colonial, navy shutters, mums on the porch. A wooden sign by the front door read, "Home is where your story begins." I used to believe that. Now I wasn't sure where my story had ended, or if I was still in the middle of the wreck. I knocked once, then used the spare key still hidden under the frog statue beside the hydrangeas. The smell hit me first. Vanilla, cinnamon, home. Mom was in the kitchen, pulling a tray of muffins from the oven. She turned when she heard the door, saw my face, and froze. "Harper?" she said softly. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" That was all it took. The wall I'd been building with every lie I swallowed crumbled with one word. I opened my mouth. No sound came. Just tears. Silent. Relentless. She rushed to me, wrapping me in her arms like she used to when I scraped my knees on the driveway. Only now the scrapes were all inside. "I'm here," she whispered. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." We sat at the kitchen table just like we used to. She poured tea, set it down in front of me with both hands. "You don't have to talk yet," she said. "Just breathe." I tried, but the words were rising, sharp and urgent. "He's cheating on me," I whispered. "With Riley." She didn't gasp, didn't cry. Her eyes just locked onto mine. Still. Steady. "How long?" "For months. She's 4 months pregnant. It's his." Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth. "And the worst part?" I said, almost laughing through the ache. "They were planning to hide it from me. He was going to support her financially, quietly, while holding my hand through our son's birth." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the kind that falls right before a storm. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "Did you tell him you know?" I shook my head. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust what I might say. So, I came here. She squeezed my hand. "You are sane," she said, voice firm. "You are grounded, brave, and good. That man doesn't get to define you." From the living room, we heard the front door creak. Dad. His footsteps, slow, deliberate, familiar. He entered, newspaper tucked under one arm, glasses still on his nose. He looked at me, then at Mom. "What happened?" She didn't say much, just leaned into him and whispered. His jaw locked. The muscle in his temple twitched. "He did what?" he growled, voice low. "Dad, please," I said. "I didn't come to cause more drama." He walked over, placed both hands on my shoulders. "You didn't cause anything, but you sure as hell don't have to carry it alone." I sank into the chair, exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't touch. "I don't know what to do," I said. "Do I leave him? Do I wait? What if Asher grows up without a father?" Mom looked at me with eyes that had seen enough to know better. "That man made his choices, Harper. Now you have to make yours, and your only job is to protect yourself and your son." Dad added, "If you stay, you're telling him betrayal is survivable. Is that what you want your son to believe marriage looks like?" I looked down at my tea, still warm, still untouched, like a version of me that hadn't shattered yet. "No," I said, "but I'm not ready to say it out loud." "Then don't," Mom said. "Not yet. Rest. Eat. Let yourself breathe again." She made soup, potato and leek, my childhood favorite. And we sat there at the table, like we used to after high school plays and prom heartbreaks. Only this time, the heartbreak was mine. And this time, I wasn't just a daughter. I was someone's mother. I drove back with the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, the kind that hums beneath your skin, the kind that waits. Colton texted once, "Hey babe, everything okay?" I didn't answer, because this time, I wasn't going home to make things okay. I was going home to tell the truth. When I pulled into our driveway, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn. The pumpkins we'd bought last week still sat on the porch, untouched. Fake smiles in gourd form. I walked inside. Colton was on the couch, laptop open, a half-eaten sandwich beside him like it was just another Wednesday. He looked up, surprised, but only slightly. "Hey, where'd you go?" he asked, standing up. "I tried calling." I didn't drop my keys, didn't raise my voice. "I was with my parents," I said calmly. placing my purse on the counter. His smile faltered. Is everything all right? No. I turned to face him. We need to talk. He froze, then closed his laptop slowly, like that would slow down whatever was about to hit him. Is something wrong with the baby? No, I said, staring him straight in the eye. Asher is perfect. It's you who's the problem. The color drained from his face. I let the silence hang, let him fill it with panic. I know about Riley, I said. I heard everything. At the clinic, you weren't exactly whispering. His jaw clenched. Harper, you don't get to explain it away, I snapped. I heard you say I was getting suspicious. I heard her say she'd lie to me, and I heard you agree. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then tried again. It's not what you think. I laughed. Not the cute kind, the kind that tastes like rust in your throat. Oh, good. Then please, tell me what I misunderstood. I folded my arms. Because Riley's 4 months pregnant, Colton. That's not a one-night accident, that's a decision. It wasn't planned, he said weakly. She said she was on birth control. And you said nothing for 4 months. He started pacing, hands through his hair. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was going to tell you eventually. When? I cut in. After Asher was born? After her baby's first birthday? Were you hoping I'd just never figure it out? He looked at me, guilt flooding every inch of his face. I didn't want to lose you. That was the one that broke me. You didn't want to lose me, I repeated, voice low. But you didn't choose me either, not once, not when it mattered. He reached for me. I stepped back. I'm leaving, I said. I've already packed a bag. I'm going back to my parents. His face collapsed. Harper, please, let's talk this through. We are talking, I said. You just don't like what I'm saying. I'll fix it. I'll end it with her. I'll go to therapy. You've had 4 months to do something. You did nothing. He stood there, helpless, mouth opening and closing like a man drowning in the truth he created. And the baby? He asked softly. You're just going to take him away from me? I narrowed my eyes. You want to be a father? I said. Then act like one. Get a lawyer, file for visitation, pay support. You don't get to play family now that the game fell apart. I picked up my bag. Prenatal vitamins, ultrasound photo, charger. He followed me to the door. Please don't do this, he whispered. I turned, looked him dead in the eye. I'm not the one who did this, Colton, I said. You did. Now you live with it. And I walked out. That first night back at my parents' house, I slept deeper than I had in months. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, but because the pretending was. No more lying to myself, no more smiling to survive, just me and the truth. It began on a Tuesday, not with drama, not with a rush of panic, just a low, familiar ache in my back, the kind I'd been warned about, the kind I thought I still had weeks left to prepare for. I was folding tiny socks when I paused, placed a hand on my lower belly, and whispered, "Is it time, little guy?" The next wave came 10 minutes later, stronger, steadier. By the fourth one, I knew. Asher was ready. And somehow, so was I. Mom was calm, like she'd been waiting for this since the moment I walked back into her house. She grabbed the hospital bag. Dad warmed up the car. The air outside was cool, wrapped in the early breath of spring. The drive to the hospital was quiet. No small talk, no fear. Just the rhythm of my breathing and the soft squeeze of Mom's hand over mine at every red light. You're doing great, she whispered. You're going to meet your son today. My throat tightened, not with panic, not with grief, but with something I hadn't felt in months, peace. Labor wasn't a movie. There were no screams, no dramatics, just hours of breathing, shifting, pushing, breathing again. I kept my eyes closed through most of it, listening to the monitor, counting my own heartbeats, whispering to Asher through the pain. You're safe. I'm here. We made it. At 2:47 p.m., the doctor said, "One more push." And I gave it everything I had left. And then, a cry. Sharp, loud, real. The most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. They placed him on my chest, all pink and wrinkled and brand new. His fists curled against my skin. His cries softened as I whispered, "Hi, baby. I'm your mom, and I've been waiting for you." I don't know how long I stared at him. Time slowed. The room fell away. All that was left was this perfect little being who had already survived heartbreak before even taking his first breath. Asher. He blinked up at me with sleepy eyes and settled his tiny body into my heartbeat like he'd known it all along. He was healthy. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. I counted twice just to be sure. Later, my parents came in with balloons, a blanket, and the soft kind of joy only new grandparents can wear. Dad held Asher and whispered, "You've got strong lungs, kid, just like your mama." Mom couldn't stop crying. Colton wasn't there. He didn't know. And even if he had, he wouldn't have been let in. This moment, this space, it was ours, mine and Asher's. The next morning, a nurse handed me the birth certificate form. I stared at the line for a long time. Asher Colton Lane. I hesitated at the middle name, but then I wrote it anyway. Not for Colton, but for Asher. So one day, if he asks, I'll have an answer. And it will be honest. Back at my parents' house, we fell into a rhythm. Feedings, diaper changes, naps, repeat. He loved to be held, especially in the early mornings, curled against my chest, both of us wrapped in a blanket while the house slept around us. In those moments, I didn't feel like a woman who had been betrayed, or a girl who lost her best friend. I felt like a mother, whole, anchored, new. Colton emailed once, "I want to meet my son. I miss him." I forwarded it to my lawyer. Let him show up in court. Let him earn it. Because fatherhood isn't a word you write on a birth certificate. It's work. It's presence. It's truth. And I'd been doing all of that on my own since the first heartbeat echoed across that ultrasound screen. I hadn't seen her since the cafe. Since the lie she served in a latte cup with almond milk and too much sugar. Since I walked out with a belly full of truth and a silence loud enough to bury a decade of friendship. But that morning, Asher and I took the long route through Centennial Park. Spring had started to bloom again, tiny daffodils peeking out from winter's rubble, toddlers waddling after ducks near the pond. Asher was 10 months now, chubby, curious. His laughter had become the soundtrack of my mornings. I was pushing the stroller up the gravel path when I saw her, Riley, sitting alone on a bench near the water, rocking a baby in her arms. A girl. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot. She looked thinner, older. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her shoulders curled inward like someone trying to hold in regret. I stopped. I could have turned around, pretended I didn't see her, but I didn't. I walked forward, slowly, like forgiveness wasn't the goal, but closure might be. Our eyes met. She blinked, startled. "Hey," she said. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. "Hey," I replied, just as softly. I sat on the far end of the bench, keeping enough space for memory to breathe. She looked down at the baby girl in her arms. "She's Emma," Riley said, almost in a whisper. "She just turned 6 weeks." I looked closer. Big eyes, round cheeks, Colton's chin. "She's beautiful," I said. And I meant it. Riley nodded. "Thanks. She cries a lot. I haven't slept more than 3 hours in a row in over a month." I smiled, tired and knowing. "Yeah, same." We sat there, just listening to the babies breathe. The ducks quacked nearby. The wind played with the edges of the stroller canopy. Then Riley spoke. "I wanted to call you 100 times, but I didn't know if you'd ever want to hear from me again." I didn't respond, because I wasn't sure I had. "I was stupid," she continued, voice cracking. "I thought he loved me. I don't know what I thought." "He told you what you needed to hear," I said. "That makes 2 of us." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were glassy. "He left," she whispered, "a month after Emma was born. Said he needed to rebuild his life. I haven't heard from him since." I didn't feel triumph, didn't feel revenge settle into my bones. I just felt tired. Like her words were bricks I didn't have to carry anymore. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping a tear. "Not just for that. For all of it. For hurting you. For thinking I was different." I studied her face. She didn't look like the girl who once helped me pick wedding shoes, or the one who braided my hair the night before I said yes to Colton. She looked like a mother, and so did I. I don't hate you, I said finally. Her head snapped toward me, surprised. But I don't forgive you either. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I paused. But I'm done carrying it. She nodded slowly. That's fair. We sat in silence again. Emma fussed. Asher stirred. The ducks kept circling. I stood first. Take care of her, I said, nodding toward the baby. You too, she replied, eyes still on Emma. He's lucky to have you. I turned and walked away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, just done. Autumn returned with soft footsteps that year. The leaves turned golden again, just like the fall when everything fell apart. But this time, I didn't fall with them. Asher was walking, clumsy, determined steps that made my heart ache in the best way. He giggled every time he spotted birds out the window, shouting, "Ba, ba!" At night, he curled into my chest like he'd always belonged there. And in every quiet moment, I realized I didn't need an apology. I didn't need revenge, because I had peace, and peace doesn't beg to be understood. It just lives. Harper never went back. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She simply walked away. Not to punish anyone, but to protect everything that still mattered. In a small house filled with her son's laughter, she rebuilt herself, piece by piece, truth by truth. Because peace doesn't come from getting revenge. It comes from knowing you lived your truth even when it hurt, and sometimes that's enough.